The reality is it has to straddle all of it. It has to work across all the chains, all the side chains, all the other protocols. And so that's why Atomicals is geared in the way it is that it's a standalone, but also very complementary to all that exists now. And from the spirit of it is collaboration, but competition.
Friendly competition, right? Collaborative competition in its most purest form of essence. Woo! Welcome back, everybody. As you can see, I'm back in the studio with a new setup, going with the kind of straight on kind of view. So we'll see how this goes. I have brought into the studio A, which is going to be a pseudonym, who is the creator of Atomicals. It's a new protocol on Bitcoin that I've been following. It's caught some interest across the ordinal ecosystem, although this is similar to ordinal theory. It's not directly ordinals. So we're going to really dive into some of the technicals, understanding what Atomical is, and maybe help somebody like me, and if you're in my shoes and you don't know how to open up a command center, figure out ways that we could participate without having to be a gigadev Chad like A and everybody else. So appreciate you for coming on, man. I'm really excited for this conversation.
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
Yeah, absolute pleasure. Let's just go straight into it, man. How do you describe Atomicals? Is this a protocol that's built on Bitcoin? Is it built on ordinal theory? And then maybe give a little bit of some background to how you led to coming up with Atomicals to build on Bitcoin.
Yes, Atomicals is a completely new protocol that runs on Bitcoin itself. So it's not a side chain or any other off-chain solution. It actually operates on the data that's on Bitcoin itself. And it's a new protocol. You can think of it as like a sister protocol to ordinals. It's not leveraging the ordinals protocol. It's a completely separate adjacent protocol and operates in a similar fashion, but it has a number of benefits. So at a high level, the protocol is designed for dynamic digital objects. So ordinals has the digital artifacts. So you have like immutable data, and you have these NFT, digital art, and files that are immutable on ordinals that can be transferred like digital property, but they don't have a dynamic component. Other protocols and services have emerged to try to turn ordinals into more of a dynamic system. So you could like have updatable websites or updatable digital art. And so Atomicals just goes straight to the digital objects directly. So every NFT has the artifact side where it's just like an ordinal, but it also has the dynamic data. So you could attach files and data after the fact. You might imagine like a game or a character in a game that gets upgrades with armor or weapons. And that's what Atomicals is, a protocol designed fundamentally for this interactivity, but also being able to cater to digital collectibles and NFTs as well. So I'll touch on what led to the creation and the history of Atomicals. Originally, we set out to build something on ordinals to create dynamic objects. You might imagine the example of a game where you have a character, you want to give upgrades to it, or you want to create a naming system where you can update the records for the name. Maybe you want to receive cryptocurrency of any kind of cryptocurrency at a certain address, and you need to update your addresses at that ordinal. But about a month in about February, I realized that the ordinals protocol is heavily oriented towards artifacts, like static data, which is fantastic because once you create an NFT collection, you create these artifacts, they remain immutable and they can be transferred around and mixed and matched in collections and so on. It's led to an explosion of development and creativity and interest in Bitcoin again. And it's also, ordinals is also oriented towards these rare sats, tracking the individual sats. And I think it's interesting, but I think what the market has shown their interest in is the inscriptions, the actual NFTs. That's, people are more interested in the art and how you can use the inscriptions, not so much the rarity of the sats, although there's a little bit of that coming along now. What this rare sats tracking does, though, is it creates a heavier indexer, a more complicated protocol for tracking these satoshis that, in my opinion, was completely not necessary for what we needed. We just needed the simplest possible system that would work in Bitcoin for tracking NFTs that would be scalable and performant. And so after about a month building this naming update system into ordinals and still trying to sync my ord node after a week, I realized that there's got to be a simpler way. And so I worked on protocols, blockchains, and NFT theory for a couple years leading up to this. And I just thought, you know what? Forget it. I'm not building on ordinals, working in these limitations. I'm just going to apply the theory that I've developed over the past couple of years of NFTs on Bitcoin. I developed a full NFT tracking theory over the course of almost 3 years. That was for another project. And I just realized that, screw it, I'm just going to go and build it. And it's going to only take me a month. And I told everyone, it's going to take me a month. And then I said, it's going to take me 2 months. And then here we are, 7 months later, I actually finally finished the work and launched it. So, but every bit of time that I took was absolutely necessary to perfect it. This is the grand vision of my work for 3 years. And I'm so pleased to be able to unveil it on your show here and just generally unveil it to the world in this past short little while here and give it to the world so that there's now another option for developers to be able to create dynamic digital objects and digital artifacts in a cohesive way that complements ordinals. It can work with ordinals, it can organize ordinals, but it also can stand on its own to do so much more.
Well, congratulations first. I mean, 6 months of straight development with you and maybe a small team, it's no easy feat. I had a chance to talk with Casey many months before Ordinals was first deployed. And he, at that point, and this was August of 2022, he said he had been working on it for over 6 months. So he sat in his basement, his mother's basement, quote unquote, for over a year working on this before it ever hit the market. And then, of course, what you had pointed out, which is kind of a similar controversy that's happening in the ordinal space at the time of this recording, is that there's this fungible token war that Casey has gone on to talk about creating runes, which is outside of ordinal theory. It's a separate fungible token because he said that ordinal theory is supposed to be built for the digital artifacts, for the inscriptions, and for rare sats, which is primarily being used for collectors. And the builders that have begun utilizing ordinal theory to build out their meta protocol are now running into a lot of trouble because of some of these new introductions and some of the mannerisms and ideologies that the creator of ordinals, Casey, is portraying, is now showcasing the limitations to the protocol. And so maybe this is where Atomicals really comes in. But looking under the hood before we dive into, some of the theoretics and the use cases, give us some, I guess, descriptions and maybe a little bit more mapping logistically of what it takes to set up Atomicals and how it differs from ordinal theory in terms of, is it just an index? Like, is it just a difference of indexing is all it is between those two? Or are there other requirements of tooling or less requirements of software?
Sure. Atomicals, just saying, the protocol is the Atomicals protocol, kind of like an atom. I like that description because we're dealing with almost like particles, the satoshis themselves, the system. So what it takes to set up Atomicals is there's an indexer. It's an open source indexer based off Electrum X, which is a popular, common, robust indexer for Bitcoin, Litecoin, Dogecoin that's been around for, I think, 7 years, or if not more. And it's written in Python, and it uses a high performance level DB. So it's just a really high performance indexer for serving up light clients and SPV. So I forked Electrum X and implemented Atomicals in Electromex because I've had experience deploying in commercial scenarios Electromex for, let's just say, commercial software as a service that use blockchains. And so it made logical sense because the majority of the industry runs on Electromex already behind the scenes. And so forking that for my years of experience just made sense. So what Atomicals, to get set up, you would either find a node provider. There's more and more popping up every day. Find a node provider that's hosting it and just connect to their API with WebSockets or their RPC interface. Or you can download and install the Python package and index the blockchain yourself. So the side benefit is you get access to the entire Bitcoin blockchain, not just the Atomicals NFTs or the ARC20 tokens. So similar to Ordinals, we have our node, which is based on the Electromex base, and they have their own, which is called Ord, based on, it's a Rust fresh software package specifically designed for Ordinals. And the difference is here, we just forked an existing Bitcoin node and deployed it that way. So once that's set up, or you have a connection to one of these nodes, then you can use the command line tool, Atomicals.js, just written in JavaScript, to be able to interface with it. Everything from minting a token to updating NFTs to transferring or minting ARC20 tokens are all in there. And it's not designed to be it's as user-friendly as you can get for a command line, but I understand this is very developer-oriented. And that's just due to a lack of time to get this to market. And the idea is that since everything is open sourced and it's comprehensive, then other developers can take that, fork it, it's all free, open source, then they can go ahead and build their websites and marketplaces and wallets using the examples that I've provided. So that's how we interface with it now, which is not dissimilar from how it was in the early days of Ordinals. I remember trying to mint on the command line and proxying web requests through an command line interface to mint. It was awful. But people pulled through, and they did. And very quickly, people saw the opportunity, and they built all these marketplaces and wallets around it. So that's how we interface with Atomicals for now. There's some rumors I've been hearing that people are going to be launching wallets and blockchain scanners for Atomicals in the near future. Nothing that I'm affiliated with. I'm only just helping to clarify things about the protocol. So for your viewers and everyone else out there, hopefully there'll be tools that are user-friendly, point and click, using standard websites. You don't have to use this command line interface.
Well, that's what builds healthy roots to an ecosystem, is having community members or interested individuals kind of stand up these foundational pillars in terms of wallets and marketplaces and indexers and APIs. And this is what really reinforces the narrative. And that was exactly how it was at the beginning of Ordinals. I believe the first kind of inscription tool didn't really even pop up until it was well after 1,000 had been inscribed through the kind of inscription tool. There's a reference that I saw, and this is one of your pinned posts, where it says that Atomicals are this equivalent of like colored coins 2.0, or this kind of new version of colored coins. This tends to get thrown around a lot. I've had on this show specifically Nilly Coins, who was a very early experimenter with colored coins back in 2013. Casey has given attribution to colored coins in terms of ordinal theory and kind of the sat tracking. I know there's a huge main difference here which I guess is supplemental or more beneficiary to the user in terms of how anatomicals or digital objects are being tracked, where everything is pegged 1-to-1 instead of like BRC20 on ordinal theory, where one satoshi could hold multiple units of whatever the token is. Would you like to go in and describe this difference of what I have listed here in terms of the benefits or some of the superior traits that anatomicals possesses over ordinal theory?
So colored coins is we could say, an umbrella term used to describe how we we apply some attributes or some color or some ticker, like a ticker symbol to a set of UTXOs on the, like a, coins on the Bitcoin blockchain. So what ARC20 does is it treats the satoshis in the outputs, like the UTXO outputs, it treats that as the quantity field. So you can imagine maybe you send, let's say, 5,000 satoshis to a friend in whatever that is in Bitcoin. Well, in ARC20, those 5,000 satoshis, that's on the blockchain, that represents the number of units you have of some ARC20 token. So let's say you mint a token called, I don't know, ABCD, or I'll say agent. It's easier to pronounce. An agent token, we'll just call it the ticker agent. And to deploy tokens, you would deploy that number of satoshis representing the total supply. And so the advantage of this, so I'll contrast that to BRC20. What BRC20 does is it has no association to the satoshis in the outputs whatsoever. BRC20 is a JSON object, like a data object, that just puts a data field that mints however many units they want out of thin air. Well, everything's kind of out of thin air, but I'm exaggerating a little bit here. But you can say, I want 1 trillion tokens of this BRC20 token, and so let it be and it exists, even though there's no satoshis or very little satoshis in that output. They could say there's 1 trillion units of it, and then they can transfer that as almost like data is riding on top of the coins, and it could be anything they want. What ARC20 does is it restricts the token to be bounded to the satoshis themselves. So what this means is there's a few very important consequences. One is the logic is so much easier to understand because now you can use any blockchain explorer and you can look at the transaction, and the inputs and the output quantities correspond to the colored coin quantities. For just a usability perspective, you don't have to pull up a specialized indexer to just figure out how many coins are being transferred. You can look natively, look directly at the satoshis. That's an advantage, is usability. The other advantage is you can't just mint 1 trillion units of a coin without backing it by some digital gold quantity. Like Bitcoin is digital gold, right? So our coins, whatever type of coin you create, could be the agent token or whatever, it should be backed by some amount of digital gold. Each unit should have some satoshis infused into the coin itself. This is my philosophy, is that assets should be underpinned with digital gold, just like you'd make a gold watch out of gold, and there's a certain amount of metal content in there. That's what ARC20 does, is it substantiates all these tokens with digital gold. Now, what does that mean? You can't just mint 1 trillion coins without having the equivalent of 1 trillion satoshis, right? So there's 100 million satoshis in a Bitcoin. So if you want a token with 100 million supply, well, guess what, developer team? You can't just mint that. You need to supply and collateralize it with 1 Bitcoin. So this greatly reduces the number of scam coins that teams just mint, units out of nowhere. They now need to collateralize upfront the units that they want, or they need to, get that from somewhere. So that's one other advantage, is it reduces the number of these tokens that are minted out of thin air, because you actually need to provide actual digital gold infused into it. So the usability plus this kind of collateralization, I think, is just a more elegant model, because it treats the colored coins like Bitcoin treats satoshis. So I think it's more, when I say it's the Satoshi faithful, there's a bit of a pun there, because it's faithful to the Satoshi alignment, like the actual units, but it's also in the spirit of Bitcoin itself that Satoshi created. So that's why I think this is probably, I think, the final destination, because when you logically work it out, you can't get better than this. It just doesn't get better than this. And it took this long for people to do it. I don't know why. But here we are, and finally we have now this version of colored coins.
And when Atomicals was announced, there was a new term that I saw my friend Bob Bodley throw out there, is this idea of meta mining. And, you know, as a new protocol is generally proposed, you have a lot of, you know, technically minded individuals kind of prodding it, trying to figure out what the differences are, what the strengths and the weaknesses. And it seemed like everyone kind of coalesced around this what you call Bitwork mining, which is this idea of mining for ARC20s as a meta protocol that exists on Bitcoin, because of course Bitcoin also mines, but they're using ASICs, right? And it's now a heavily industrialized kind of market with the mining rigs. Please just dive into what Bitwork mining is. What is the innovation here and the strengths and weaknesses of this introduction of Bitwork mining for ARC20 tokens?
For sure. So as you pointed out, Bob Bodley coined the phrase Bitwork. And in the midst of developing ARC20, I had a proof of work mining feature that I was building. I called it a POW prefix. And as soon as I saw his post for, you know, his coining of the term Bitwork, I immediately replied to him and I said, you know, thank you so much. That is a great term. We're going to use that for the mining aspect in Atomicals. So what proof of work mineable tokens are is basically a vanity transaction ID. Right. There's vanity address generators where there's like the prefix contains someone's name or some string of characters. We're just applying that to the transaction ID itself. So you can have the transaction ID start with anything you want. So for example, 777, like 4 sevens in a row. And by requiring a mint to match the transaction ID prefix of 7777, what we're saying is it takes a certain amount of energy, CPU power, to find a hash by incrementing just a random number. It takes up to 65,000 hashes. In a CPU, it's about a minute right now. It's not optimized, about 1 minute of mining. And the purpose of this is a couple reasons. One, it is so that people can't just mint tokens without spending energy and proving work. You can't just blast a bunch of transactions. You actually have to compute something, just like Bitcoin itself. You have to demonstrate proof of work to have the rights to claim that ticker. Otherwise, you can imagine someone just going to squat all these ticker names by, you know, sending a single transaction with 10,000 ticker names in it, for example. Well, now with Bitwork, they have to now spin up 10,000 CPUs to go and claim those tickers. So they have to do some work. So this is not only a throttling mechanism to protect claiming of names and tickers, it also allows people to create a vanity atomical ID where maybe your token has the prefix is the ticker symbol. So it looks cool, right? And having a vanity transaction ID is pretty cool. That's the second benefit. The final benefit, which I think is the most important, we don't get this situation of BRC20 like token mint grabs. What we saw with BRC20 is they deploy a ticker and the people in the know just blast as many transactions on the blockchain as fast as possible to just gobble up the supply of BRC20 and it's theirs. Well, that's impossible with ARC20. Well, actually, it's not impossible, but it's just very costly because when you're minting in the decentralized minting mode, everyone that wants to claim a piece of that token now needs to perform work. They need to spend energy to get their small slice, which leads to a better decentralization, better distribution, and it's just a lot of fun to sit there for hours and hours trying to mint your slice of this token while there's another several thousand people out there in the world also mining this token, hoping they can get a small piece of this until the supply runs out. So this is a lot more fair of a distribution, just like Bitcoin itself. So we built in Bitwork, every single digital artifact, every digital object, and every ARC20 fungible token can have Bitwork added. It's optional, it's not required, but it's there. And it also allows meta protocols to emerge. So for example, for Bitmap, people have been claiming bitmaps by broadcasting the first block height and saying the first one in a block is the owner of the bitmap. Well, a more fair distribution would be to say you need to mine, do a Bitwork mining of 6 digits representing the block height. That would take approximately 8 hours of CPU time to catch. So you see, you don't just race to be the first one to claim that. You actually, now it's like a lottery, just like Bitcoin itself. And randomly, someone will get that bitmap, and it's just a more fair distribution scheme. And then you can create parcels and hierarchies of these prefixes that are provably grounded in the same proof of work, which I will not say more on right now, but it'll lead to an emergence of meta protocols that are almost like mini Bitcoins inside Bitcoin. So a larger goal for me is to bring all the proof of work in GPUs back to Bitcoin by mining tokens on Bitcoin. The more we can do to secure Bitcoin by creating value at the meta layer, the more we're going to secure the base layer. So that's part of the grand strategy, is to draw all proof of work back to BTC.
Wow, bringing GPUs back to Bitcoin. That's a really powerful statement. For those that don't know, GPUs is what was originally used to mine Bitcoin before it became heavily industrialized, and the power expenditure was way too much for just a normal house or a normal computer to really even use when ASICs kind of took over. So from this, this explanation over the last 30 minutes, it sounds like Atomicals is really built almost as this like anti-degen mechanism, right? The shield. So instead of having squatters come in, and this degens are pretty anomalous with squatters as well. They come in and they mint all the tokens, and then it kind of ruins the fun for everybody. But it's a lot easier for the average individual to go on to ordinal theory, at least with the infrastructure that exists, go on Unisat and mint, where you don't have to where you don't have to spend that much time on it. Now, a lot of people get frustrated because they're using Solana or Ethereum or any of these other smart contracts, and they're getting their transactions pushed, within seconds, generally, maybe 10, 15 seconds at most. Here, right, could be hours at a time. Have you thought through, the cultural layer, the social consensus layer of what mechanisms Atomical needs to introduce to encourage people like myself who are not devs, or, the prospective collector, or maybe just the savvy investor to come in and participate in the network without having to possess very, depth engineering and technical knowledge?
Yes, for sure. So just to say at the beginning, the Bitwork mining aspect is completely optional at all levels except one scenario. The one case where you need Bitwork is to claim a name, and it's about a 1 minute CPU time. So it's not overly onerous to do that. Looking forward, it's the token creator that can choose how much Bitwork is needed. If they want to deploy a token that takes 8 hours, they can. That's their prerogative to go ahead and do that. Someone can mine it, then someone else can, sell it or buy it from them. But looking forward, just like Bitcoin used to be from like hobbyists mining on their own computer, and it moved to the cloud, it moved to mining farms. The same thing here is that services and wallets will emerge that just handle the mining on behalf of the user. The user is not going to need to grind their CPU on their laptop until it gets hot for a minute to mint a token. They can just go ahead and click, mint now. It'll get deployed to the cloud. That wallet will go ahead and find the Bitwork proof of work for them, and then just return the result. So just like this, analogously with what happened with Bitcoin, it went to the cloud, went to mining farms. The same thing here will eventually happen, is it moves from the hobbyist computer onto the cloud as well. And it'll basically end up disappearing for the regular user. They won't be dealing with that. But just to add, it's not overly onerous right now. It's about a minute of CPU, and it will just get better and better and faster. With some optimizations, we can get it down to about 10 seconds. And the tools are going to come online. I completely agree. Right now, it's really geared towards developers, and hopefully that's going to change very quickly.
Yep, it's exactly the origins of Bitcoin was very, very developer heavy. I pulled this tweet up, or post on the screen. It says the node client, and when you look through this JSON, it says anatomical count 4489. Is that the equivalent of the inscription number? That's the atomical number. So at the point of this post, there had been 4,489 ARC20s created.
Yes,
or digital objects. My reference.
Yes, This is the total. This is like the inscription number. We're up to, I think, 7,000 or almost 7,000 as of today. So yes, this is the equivalent of the number of realms, FTs, and ARC20 tokens that are created at this point in time. How is
the atomical system differentiating what's an NFT or what's a digital object from an ARC20, from a realm name to whatever new kind of thing is introduced? Is it something from the command line that's showing a difference? Can you just kind of explain where those boundaries are?
Sure. So there's two major types of atomicals that could be created. One is the fungible token, ARC20s. They're called FTs, like for fungible token. And the second type is NFT, for non-fungible token. Both of them get an inscription number. The difference, of course, being that NFT can only have one owner at any given time. And an ARC20, or the FT type, can have many owners at the same time. So when we do a query, or we pull up the data of the object, there's a type field. The type says NFT or FT. So the NFT is further divided into something called realms and collection containers. These are two further subtypes that have special properties. So that's the difference. There's FT types and NFT types of atomicals. And then the non-fungible tokens fall into a further classification of collection containers. So you'll recognize this from NFT collections, right? Right now, the NFT collections on ordinals are all stored on the private databases of all the wallets and stored on GitHub. There's no on-chain protocol. There's no on-chain standard for organizing these. So if you're an NFT creator, you need to go to all these marketplaces and ask them to update this file, hoping you got all 1,000 of your items entered correctly. And you just kind of go around to all the marketplaces, hoping they update the description, the banner image, and everything. Well, collection containers is an atomical digital object where you just update that collection items yourself on chain, and any marketplace can just pull up the container data themselves and render the collection exactly the way you intended it, because everyone has the exact same copy on chain. And collection containers are identified with the hashtag. So you could have like hashtag Bitcoin apes. Mm-hmm. And that would be your unique name for the collection container, that everyone would use that as the URL, the link slug. So everyone would know where to find the Bitcoin apes collection container and then be able to browse all the Bitcoin apes in that collection.
Got it. Yep. So collection containers is the equivalent of the collection coming with the metadata that you can essentially pre-inscribe into the protocol itself so that GitHub repositories aren't needed. This is generally what marketplaces do in the ordinal ecosystem. Currently, Magic Eden and all these other places are pulling from Ordinal Wallet's GitHub repository, where everybody is introducing their own JSON, which has all of the equivalent of traits for all of their collections. And then that's how they are presented on the front end of the marketplace. So this abstracts, a handful of those kind of central points away and does this in a decentralized manner that's built directly into the protocol. So that's that's a very good sign for creators, because it's, of course, eliminating some of the friction to get it done. Of course, as well, though, it still needs some front ends to be built. In terms of the digital object itself, is it also bound to the limit of 4 megabytes, which is the limit for the Taproot script, or is there some other different metrics that are defining the data size limit of this protocol?
You're correct. The limit is the block size of the Bitcoin block size itself in any given update. So another difference with atomicals over ordinals is that you can have attached multiple files. So not just a single image, you can have any number of images or metadata fields, and you can update them independently after you've minted them. So you could, if you wanted to pay for the entire Bitcoin block, you can have a 4 megabyte image in a single transaction, and then you can attach another image in another transaction at another image name. So you could actually build up Atomicals digital objects that are larger than 4 megabytes, because you can apply multiple updates, like multiple files, to the same NFT. So that the limit is fundamentally 4 megabytes per update if you're willing to pay that entire block space worth of transaction fees. So that's the only limitation, is the Bitcoin block size.
Yep. And here that you've perfectly outlined, there's a dynamic state, there's freezable properties, there's parent-child relationships, right? Very similar terminology between ordinals and kind of the Ethereum ecosystem. Everything will be tokenized, communities token, profiles, websites, etc., which is also another saying in the ordinal ecosystem, that everything will be tokenized, or they're going to build everything on Bitcoin in terms of recursive inscriptions and so on and so forth. But one final kind of slot I see on your documentation is this idea of realm names. Everyone is very familiar with ENS, name services. Name services are the second oldest blockchain in existence, going all the way back to Namecoin in 2011. Of course, NFTs are kind of this digital identity in terms of an avatar. And then you have name services, which is your digital identity in terms of your name. What is going on here with realm names? And then just go through some of the positive and benefits and differences between this realm name service and maybe some of the other ones we see across different blockchains.
For sure. So realms is a complete reimagining of the domain name system that we have, but for the Bitcoin blockchain era. Realms is your digital identity, your Web3 digital identity on Bitcoin, that does everything that ENS does and every other name system, including DNS, but better. It is digital property. It's owned by you permanently once you claim the Realm NFT until you transfer it or sell it to someone else. A realm is identified with the plus at the front to indicate that the realms are going from left to right. So you can imagine the name like plus Alice. There's no domain suffix because we're in a post-DNS world here. This is going to be our decentralized replacement for DNS, for the on-chain world that's controlled by no one. It's powered by Bitcoin. There's no central team. There isn't. There's just a protocol. And so, for example, the name plus Alice is just an atomical NFT underneath. You can attach files, websites, cryptocurrency addresses, zone records, like to host, websites or your social media profiles. And so a realm is actually the reason for Atomicals to exist in the first place. We wanted to build this on ordinals and realized it's not possible. It's not feasible to build such a dynamic system for digital identity on ordinals. This is the entire purpose for the existence of Atomicals, was to create realms. And in the same process of inventing Atomicals, we also solved the color coins problem with ARC20. We solved the collection standard problem, and we solved the dynamic digital objects all in one go. So realms is, I think, our best chance at digital sovereignty in the 21st century. And so right now, you can claim your own realm name that is globally unique. You can store your collections, host your website, and host your social media profiles. Your Nostr links and your Nostr profiles will be linked on Bitcoin as well. And you can see here that there is no domain suffix. Everything is what you call a top-level realm. In the domain parlance, it's called the TLD. We're calling it TLR for top-level realm. It's a completely unique alternative universe to domains. It's unstoppable, just like unstoppable domains on Ethereum. The difference is there's no central contract, there's no central team, there's no renewal fees like ENS. This is the purest form of NFTs. Think of Namecoin on Bitcoin. That's really my goal from the beginning of this, was to invent Namecoin directly on Bitcoin itself.
Well,
and
quite a profound statement. As we know, I come from this historical NFT kind of background. I've collected a ton of old Namecoin domains, including actually on Jake.bit, which was originally registered in 2011. And of course, Satoshi actually proposed, and he was in that initial discussion of forking Bitcoin to Namecoin. So that comes with a great weight when you mention Namecoin, because a lot of the OGs and also Gavin and some of these other ones partook in that forking to create DNS itself. So yeah, it sounds like Realms. Is it safe to say that Realms is the cornerstone, or the cornerstone of the Atomicals protocol itself?
I think we can say that. I think time will tell. It's really one of the pillars. At the end of the day, there's ARC20, containers, and Realms, and so I think we can say it's probably going to be the cornerstone, because what we can now do with Realms is create DAOs. So here's Satoshi. It was reserved here, and you can see the location. If you view the raw data, you can get access to the API data. Well, right now, just a little comment about this website you're showing here. We're going to make it so that you can update your profile, your avatar, basically like a link tree with all your links. You can style your profile, and your profile lives on Bitcoin. This website is completely open source, by the way. It's on GitHub right now as an example on how to interface with the Electromex decentralized indexer, how to interface with Atomicals. There's no proprietary anything here. It is your web client right now, and the decentralized indexer is the beauty of this. And so this is serving as a demo site to show how easy it is to create a DNS replacement using Realms. And we're going to have social profiles that you can update, and people can use it any way they want. This is just a demo. And so these realms can be used to create hierarchies and DAOs. So imagine the Satoshi DAO. Someone that owns Satoshi, for example, can now allow sub-realms to be coined or to be minted, like Satoshi.Bob, Satoshi.Alice, Satoshi.whatever. And they can control the price that it costs to mint a sub-realm, and exactly which sub-realms. They could say anything that starts with 3 letters or higher, or anything that has the following 1,000 words are allowed to be minted. And here's the different price points. So this is all handled on-chain automatically. So any realm owner, say you own plus Jake, you can sell the sub-realms to other people at a set price. You might say, I want to be the top level Jake, but I want people to have Jake dot whatever, as long as they pay me, for example, $100 for each sub-realm. You set up the rule once, and now you've basically become a registrar, and anyone can search and see what sub-realm offerings there are. And people can then mint and then take that NFT, and it's turtles all the way down. Then they can also have a sub-realm offering under theirs. So you might have plus Jake.email, plus Jake.website, or whatever you want. This is what's going on here, is a hierarchy of realms, allows people to organize digital matter, ordinals, other realms, containers, their ordinal collections, their bitmap collections, their website, their entire digital lives now exists on-chain, on Bitcoin. We now have a viable alternative to the DNS name system that is nothing like ENS, nothing like any other naming systems. That's what Realms is all about, is empowering all of us.
So I'm looking at the guide to how to create and claim a realm, and of course it's a bunch of code here. Is this the only way to get into the game right now, is to open up a command center and basically copy paste these instructions that you've done? Are you aware of any tutorials out there for any novice no coders like myself who could get some action, or are we going to have to wait until some better tooling arrives?
I think it's a combination. So in the steps here, all we have to do is download the package and then type these commands in. You can create a wallet in one command and then there's 4 commands you run, create a wallet. So 5 lines of these commands, you're at the point of minting a realm, and it displays a QR code. So you can use any Bitcoin wallet you already have. You You just scan the QR code that will be displayed.
So I could use Xverse, Unisat, any of these ordinal wallets that exist already?
Yes. The only catch is that the Atomical will live in the Atomical wallet.json file, which is just a local wallet, but you can pay to claim and mint a realm with any wallet. Yes, absolutely.
Got it.
So you don't need anything other than these commands here to start claiming. And once you've claimed them into your wallet, you've claimed them. Now you just wait until some better tools come along that you can then transfer them to Atomical's specific wallets that will emerge. So I do recommend for someone that's not afraid of running these commands to try. You can get into the game quickly. Another note here is that I know this is not ideal and I know it's not user-friendly. So this realm.name site, which is all open source and it's a demo, we're going to be adding minting from the web user interface in about, well, I want to say 1 day, but my 1 month became 7 months. So I say 1 day, it might be 7 days to get it done so that everyone else can get into the game and start minting their realms from the UI and then update their realms with the data they want. So stay tuned for that. We really want to make this as widely accessible as possible. It's just some of these things, they take a bit of time to code up.
Yeah, no worries. Hopefully by the time this is released, this generally takes about a week, 7 to 10 days to post. So hopefully it'll be live by then. Some grade A handholding is definitely going to be needed. So I'm definitely going to be leaning on that tooling or that services when it exists. This is a really awesome protocol, right? It's still so early. But when you look, I'm interested from your perspective, when you look across the ecosystem of protocols or meta protocols that exist on Bitcoin, how do you view any of these other ones? Do you think that Atomicals can be compatible with any of these other ones? Do you think they could coexist per se, or are all of them in direct competition with one another because they all host X ecosystems on top, naming services, fungibles, non-fungibles, etc.
I cut out for a bit. Can you please, I heard the last bit. You said that are these other naming systems in competition, or are these services in competition with each other?
Yeah, so when you view and you look at the ecosystem that exists on Bitcoin in terms of protocols, you have side chains like Rootstock, and you have L2s like Stacks, you have meta protocols like ordinal theory. Because Bitcoin lacks standardization, because it has a lack of smart contract functionality, all of these protocols all have their own kind of degree of innovation that are introduced through it. Do you believe that Atomicals can coexist with these other ones, or are they all in direct competition because they're all trying to attract as many users as possible through X offerings within each protocol?
That's a great question. Well, I think I'm going to say both. First, Atomicals is designed to be completely standalone and completely directly in competition with any L2 solution and any side chain, like I'm going to pick on Stacks. Atomicals will show that we don't need anything other than Bitcoin itself. We can use Bitcoin itself to create a robust naming system, digital identity system, a robust dynamic digital object ecosystem can exist directly on Bitcoin. Atomicals is the first move in a larger orchestrated strategy to make Bitcoin the most powerful blockchain, which it already is, but to further solidify it for smart contracting. Atomicals is one of the first steps to make Bitcoin into a full-fledged competitor to Ethereum, Solana, every other blockchain. And ultimately, I believe what will last at the end are only the proof of work blockchains at the end of the day. That includes the Bitcoin forks, Doge, which is, of course, a Bitcoin fork, so I repeat myself, and Monero, the other privacy coins, the other smart contracting platforms based on proof of work That's what I think is going to stand at the end of the day. And Bitcoin will be that backbone, that digital gold backed beacon, the proof of work signal that secures everything else. And Atomicals is going to turn Bitcoin into the most solid smart contracting layer and be able to attach to the other proof of work blockchains. So we're going to basically discard, I hope, all of these proof of stake systems. All of these proof of stake systems, everything else is just not going to be needed. I think we could have always done this all along. Atomicals is the proof of concept to demonstrate my theory that we didn't need all these other chains. We always had what we needed. And so it's directly in competition with everything else. However, from a go-to-market strategy, Atomicals has everything you would want as a developer to unify all the other protocols too, to organize digital matter. So the collection containers is a really slick way to organize the ordinals, bitmaps, and every other aspect of your digital life and the realms as well. So really, either people will end up reinventing Atomicals in their own protocol, or they will just use Atomicals to organize their digital matter and digital assets directly. And my hope is, of course, people will see that, well, the developers will see, it just makes sense to work under the Atomicals protocol because everything is already provided for you. But we live in a multi-protocol, multi-chain world. And so that's the reality. I have a ton of ordinals NFTs. Like most people, they have NFTs and collectibles on all over the place. And I want that to still be useful. I still want that to be useful and to benefit from what's created here. So my competitive side is saying, yes, Atomicals is where it's at. You don't need to go anywhere else. We're a one-stop shop. Come on down. But the reality is it has to straddle all of it. It has to work across all the chains, all the side chains, all the other protocols. And so that's why Atomicals is geared in the way it is that it's a standalone, but also very complementary to all that exists now. And from the spirit of it is collaboration, but competition.
Friendly competition, right? Collaborative competition in its most purest form of essence. Atomicals comes, right out of the box, pretty much with everything that you need to start in terms of developers coming in and building their protocols on top. Unfortunately, to build a protocol, you don't need just developers. You need users, you need retail, right? You also need liquidity. And this is a main issue that many protocols, not even just on Bitcoin, face, is this chicken or the egg issue of users and liquidity. Of course, users attract liquidity, liquidity attracts users. Both of these are generally driven by speculation or some sort of attractive feature. Have you thought about this conundrum of solving this users and liquidity solution, or can you offer a solution of what may drive that initial speculation or interest that will attract retail users like myself and maybe some other community members who are listening?
Well, that's a great question. And to be honest, whether I had a plan or not, I was going to build this because this system had to exist. This absolutely had to be a thing. And from my work from the past few years to the 7 months it took to build this. In the end, if I was the only one to use it, I would be very sad, but I would not regret a single moment to create this protocol because as a blockchain, as a Bitcoin developer, this is what I wanted for years. I set out to build decentralized publishing systems over 5 years ago and couldn't do it. It took all these necessary steps and mistakes to get to this point, and the invention of, or the creation of Taproot and ordinals to spur this innovation. So I salute and give respect to who came before me and the shoulders of the giants before me that I can stand on. So this had to exist. In terms of what I think now, after seeing the uptake in the past couple of weeks, I think it's going to, the speculative aspect, the liquidity is going to be drawn by the ARC20 tokens. And that was a side quest. Like I built ARC20 because I realized how easy it would be to do that And a light bulb went off in my head that, hey, I knew how to do this. May as well just solve this once and for all. It looks like there's a lot of speculative, play there. And the Bitwork, like the proof of work mineable tokens, are a lot of fun, is what people have told me. They just have a blast in minting a token where they got to sit their computers out there and spend several hours in this mining fest. So there's a lot of novelty there around the mineable tokens. We're just barely scratched the surface of that whole area, but already we can see people are just totally drawn to that aspect. It's just fun. So organically, I can see the ways that liquidity is forming and the speculative interest is coming in from these novel aspects like mineable tokens. And on the other hand, we have realms, which is a pretty big claim that I'm making. I totally get what I'm saying is it's like we're saying we're going to replace DNS. We're going to be the next name coin and, forget all those other name systems. Come on over. I get what I'm saying is really out there. I get that. But once people use it and they start to see how well it works, I think that speculative fervor, that land rush is about to ignite. And we're only in the first few thousand Atomicals numbers. I think a lot of people in this space recognize it. And I think the quality will speak for itself especially when they see the wallets and the explorers coming online shortly. Once again, just from rumors that I've been hearing, my ear to the ground.
Rumors, yeah, okay.
No. Truthfully, honestly, I'm not affiliated with any of these. I built the protocol, and people have reached out to me asking the developers how they can solve certain problems because they want in on this on the ground floor. Once again, there's no promises of anything here. This is honestly just what I'm feeling out from social media, because I truly believe this is quality. Just like Ordinals itself is quality, Atomicals is quality. And in this space, there's a large amount of noise and low quality stuff that when you finally have something that works, that's a delight to use, and it's like makes you like take a second look. People want quality, and this is my labor of passion and love for the community in the world. And I'm just, in the absence of a strategy, I believe that this quality and my commitment to the protocol is going to be enough to ignite the initial flames where everyone else will take over and I can just work on the protocol and people can manifest the ecosystem around it. It's my hope and my wish that that's what happens.
Sweet poetry in motion on Bitcoin. Hey, I appreciate you for coming on and explaining this to me. This actually helped me clarify a lot of the ideas that I had. And I will definitely take an attempt, at minting a realm and opening up the command line. I might have to shoot you a DM at some point, but I recommend everyone else who made it this far to at least give it a try as well, so that you don't get front run once the degens come, when there are these simple solutions of white glove services that pop up, man. I appreciate it. And also congratulations on working on this for 7 months. I've been in on the infrastructure side for over a year now, and I know this dev work stuff is not easy. So really, really, man, congratulations on what got you to where you are today.
Thank you so much. And thank you for having me. It's been a great honor to talk to you and everyone about this. Thank you so much.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll run it back another day, and we'll run it back with you guys. Thank you for listening and watching. We'll catch you next time.